You are listening to the Cattle Call Podcast. This is the place where computer-aided design and drafting meets humor and practicality, with a touch of business acumen thrown in for fun. Jim and Rocco, the owners of Zentech Consultants, the premier U.S. technology consulting firm for architecture, engineering, construction, and manufacturing, discuss the fascinating world of CAD with some humor and some honesty. The Cattle Call Podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Cattle Call Podcast with Jim and Rocco from Zentech Consultants. I am Jim.
And I am Rocco.
Are you sure?
I think.
You didn't sound certain. If you're not sure who you are we going to have to get you like some psychiatric counseling? Is that what I'm hearing here today, Rocco?
I'll just pull out my wallet and check my ID.
There you go. It could be you, but maybe it's not. You never can tell. You have to wonder, right? If your mind's not all there and you're not sure who you are you sure you're reading that? I'm just saying. It's a possibility. You never know. All right, so I'm going to assume that you're Rocco and you're not some imposter who snuck into the studio here today with me. So I'll go with that, and we'll pretend you are Rocco for today. Though I don't trust in people. Don't believe them. All right, anyway, what are we talking about today? CAD training, right? We're talking about whether live, online, or recorded is the best way to go. All right, so this isn't the first time that we've hit on the topic of CAD training in this podcast. But I did want to revisit this today, right? Because I think it's a really important subject, particularly in light of the COVID outbreak and the fact that so many of us are working remotely now. One of the biggest responses that we've seen to the slowdowns in the design and build arena in the current environment has been folks who are using this slower period to train their staff. The idea behind it being that if you're maintaining staff, right, because you don't want to lose your best folks, or you need to maintain your staff because you took one of the government's paycheck protection loans, then at the very least you want your people to be productive and doing useful things, even though you may not have billable work right now. I think that a downtime like this is a perfect opportunity to finally get around to addressing all the training and configuration needs that you've been putting off for years because you've just been too busy. Right? It's an ideal way to keep your people active and then be prepared for when the economy and things clear up and things come back. You're already set. You're ready to go with new features, new facilities, new programs, new workflows, all those things that you've been meaning to get to and haven't. So, all right. So Rocco, we've had a lot of training and configuration discussion with people over the last few months. Are you finding that people are still actively looking to move forward in those areas, or are they pulling back over cash flow concerns right now?
It's a good blend. I mean, there's as you can imagine, there's areas of the economy that are doing well and areas that are doing not so well. But overall, I talk to small and large firms all day long, right? And there's definitely a lot of folks out there that are still quite busy, but then there's many that are not. So it's all over the map. But I definitely get folks that say, hey, we have a training budget, or we were told that we're slower now and to look for training options. Yeah. So it's all over.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to be the logical choice for me. It's an ideal time to do it, right? When you're not as busy as you have been over the last couple of years. So looking past the immediate restrictions, right, that give most of us no choice but to handle training and consulting engagements online, let's look a bit longer term, right, and talk about which methodology is the best for the modern businesses in the AEC community. And really, there are three primary ways of handling training. Right? There's in person, there's online, and there's pre-recorded. And at Zentech, right, we've always offered all three, but we do have a definite preference towards the online stuff. At heart, we've always been a digital company. Right, which makes sense for a technology consulting firm, right? Can't argue that. So let's start by talking about in-person or on-site training. What are its benefits and what are its drawbacks? I think that on the negative side, the first item that comes to mind is the costs related to in-person training. At the end of the day, when you're bringing a trainer or a consultant on site, you're going to have to pay extra. You're going to have to pay for their travel time. You're going to have to pay for all of the associated costs of getting them to your facility. That's, could be airfare, gas, meals, lodging, right? A million different things that you're going to have to cover. And another concern that I have always had with on-prem training is the logistics of it. If I'm coming to your office to train a dozen people on the new CAD standards that we build for you, where in your office am I going to do that class? I have to always ask people, do you have a training lab? Do you have a dozen computers with the CAD systems fully loaded and patched waiting in there? Right? Do you have a screen for me to project on, or do you have a 96-inch flat screen on the wall? Do you have sufficient desks and chairs and food? And, you always need to consider, I think, the costs and the scheduling difficulties of removing your people from billable work as well. Right? So, with most in-person training, you're talking about taking your people offline for hours, maybe even days in some cases at a time. I've done week-long, 2-week-long trainings. And the cost for that type of training isn't just what you're paying the instructor or the consultant to come in. It's the biggest aspect of that, I think, that people tend to overlook sometimes. It's the loss of revenue from your staff being tied up in extended classes, like I said, sometimes for days or weeks at a time. So, Rocco, I know that you get a lot of requests about in-person training. What seems to be the primary reasoning or the purpose that folks still want instructors on site? Is it mistrust of the digital tools, or is there a business case there that I'm missing that makes on site more desirable for some people?
I think it's what they're used to doing.
Mm-hmm.
But once we start having conversations and explaining some of the benefits of the online training and how we structure it here at Zentech, it does change mindsets.
Yeah.
I think that's part of it. It's just a little bit of the old school mentality. Well, right. This is the way we used to do it. But to add on the other, what you were saying too, Jim, is the loss of productivity, right? I mean, you're taking people out of production for 2 days, for 3 days, for 4 days, for a week. So that's
a big loss. Yeah, you're taking a lot of downtime there. So and you know me, right? Whenever we have these conversations, the first thing I do is try to talk people out of doing in-person training. And it's not, because of the current environment. It's something I've been doing for years now. I just think it's much more cost effective, and there are a lot of additional benefits that go, with doing it digitally. But I think that you're right. I think there is a level of comfort in the familiar. In-person training was always just, the way things are done. Right? And it's been that way for as long as there's been training. But it was that way because there was no other option available, right? If you wanted to have people be able to ask questions or show you things or discuss a particular process or workflow that is important to your company in the way that you work, you needed to have that instructor standing in the room with your staff. There was no other way. But that's not the case any longer. And I think that, most people have been forced to face that truth, right, with the current health and work environment that we're living in. That a lot of people who just resisted it for the sake of resisting it are seeing that, the digital options that are available, right, and they provide us with, the benefit of instructor-led training without the associated costs and all those logistic problems that I was talking about. So that's my opinion. I think there's benefits there. So I think we're going to take a break to hear from today's sponsor. But when we come back, we will talk about the digital options that are available for training your CAD staff. We'll be back in just a few minutes, folks, with more of the Cattle Call Podcast. Hey, everybody. We want to tell you about what we think is the most vital career development and training tool in the civil and survey world today, the Zentech Civil Engineering Hub. This professionally curated web forum offers hundreds of hours of technology and design training with more hours of video added every single week. The Zentech Civil Engineering Hub also gives you the latest industry news, design practices, white papers, best practice guides for all things civil and survey related. We have open community discussion forums where you can network with other design professionals, ask for help, discuss technical issues, request bids, post job openings. Listen, it's an ideal place to advance your professional career. Whether you're a licensed professional looking for professional development hours, or a drafter designer looking to enhance your tech skills, the Zentek Civil Engineering Hub is the one resource you have to have. Rocco, where can folks go to learn more about and even access the Zentek Civil Engineering Hub for a free trial?
Yeah, they can find us at zentekconsultants.net. That's Zentek consultants.net. Feel free to give us a ring, 866-824-4459, or drop us an email, sales@zentekconsultants.net.
Perfect answer. The Zentek Civil Engineering Hub. Everything you need for your professional development. All right, everybody. Welcome back to the Cattle Call Podcast. So today, we're discussing the pros and cons of different types of CAD training procedures. In the first segment, right, we were talking about in-person training, and we're going to get into the digital alternatives next. And I think, the first option that I wanted to talk about today is instructor-led online training. With this particular process, you have a teacher who leads a class using online meeting or training software systems like GoToTraining, which we use, Zoom, Teams, etc. There are dozens of different platforms out there that you can use. And one of the first benefits that I want to talk about with this particular training model is that it addresses two very serious problems that you face with in-person training. First of all, it eliminates the travel and logistic issues that we talked about earlier. Everybody is attending these classes right from their own desktop, their own computer, wherever they happen to be. And the instructor is doing the same, right? The teacher's presenting from their own office. So it's much easier and much more cost-effective all around. All right, so that's one benefit. Second, right, and to my mind, far more importantly, when you're dealing with online learning, you get much better information retention than you do in an in-person class. Now, what I mean by that is that, when in-person training is hours and hours or days of info dump, right? To make, in-person training cost-effective, you're usually bringing in a trainer to handle the class in one long session, right? That can easily become info dump, which is just, too much information at one time for people to retain, right? Studies show that, in an 8-hour class, students regularly retain less than 15% of the information they were taught in a given day. Right? That's not a really effective use of your time and your money. Whereas, with online training, right, you can easily and affordably break those same classes down into multiple sessions to avoid that problem, right? And I mean, it's cost effective because you don't have to pay the trainer to come back to your site 5 times. You can do them all, remotely from the desktop. So I think, shorter classes have a dramatically higher retention rate. And they also have less impact on those lost revenue hours we were talking about, right? Because students can attend, a shorter class at their desk. And then when it's over, they go right back to work, right? You're eliminating all the lost hours of billable time that you're facing with those in-person classes. People aren't driving to training labs and they're not having to set up and break down and be in classes all day long. And the other thing here is that you also have that same benefit of a live instructor for a digitally delivered class, right? So that, students get to follow along in real time using the example drawings, the example files. They can ask questions from the trainer, or they can have them, go back, go over something again, review something that they didn't, quite get the first time through. To my mind, this model of training has very little downside. I'm a huge proponent of this. So Rocco, at Zentek, obviously, right? Instructor-led online courses, there are training mainstay. It's what we do all the time. So what format do we present those courses in and why? And also, how do training clients respond to this online format over the traditional in-person format? What do you think?
Yeah, we'll typically take an 8-hour course, so full day's worth of training, and break it out into 2-hour sessions. So
Mm,
we'll do 4 2-hour sessions, and those 4 2-hour sessions could either be done once a week, or we could do it twice a week. And people, folks really like it for the reasons that you're saying. It's less time away from the regular work. Their retention rates are higher, and they're able to come back from session to session with questions.
right.
So that's huge. They're able to start to apply what they learned and come back to the next session and say, hey, I tried this, and this is what these are some of the issues that I ran into. What can I do to get around these issues?
Right.
So it's
And
not that big
that's
of
a great point. Yeah, that's a great point. I hadn't even really thought about that, but particularly in a CAD environment, right? When you learn a new set of skills, a new workflow, a new process, in the CAD world, you're sitting there working on the computer. You just go right into it and start applying it to your daily work. So if there are, things you didn't quite get or problems or issues that you run into, you bring those right to the next class. That's a really good point. So, cool.
Yeah.
All right. So the third option, right, which is kind of it's a bit of an offshoot, I guess, from the live instructor online class. It's the idea of pre-recorded training, and pre-recorded training, right? That can be presented in two ways, really. Either a class that's formally scripted to address key training issues, and then it's recorded for resale, and it's edited, and it's kind of what I call a canned recording, or right the other way that this can be handled in the pre-recorded setup, it can be just a recording of one of those instructor-led online sessions, right? And those recordings can be either a single time access, you watch it once and that's what you pay for, or even accessible to people over a period of weeks or months, depending on the program and the costs that are related to it and so on. And the obvious negative to dealing with pre-recorded training is that you don't have the ability to ask any questions or problems or whatever of your instructor in real time. And I think, a lot of folks find that limiting. They like that capability of being able to talk to a human and get answers, without delay. But I think, the real benefit that you see when you're dealing with pre-recorded training is that you can review the information at your own pace as many times as you need in order to fully understand what's being taught. You have the ability to pause the recording, right? You try something in the CAD system, rewatch it again if it didn't work, right? Make some adjustments. Then, when that's working and you're good and you're comfortable with that piece of instruction, you can move on to the next step. I also think that the pre-recorded training can be hugely beneficial for people who are really busy during the workday, right? Because it gives them the ability to take the training either after hours or on weekends or on slow days or whenever it's convenient for them. And I also think that I've found that recorded training removes any concerns over last minute issues that interrupt your training. That last minute meeting or a problem on the job site that they call you 10 minutes before the training and you have to go take care of it. Okay. When it's recorded, you just open and close the course whenever you want, right? You just say, oh, there's a problem, there's an emergency, I got to go. I'll pick this up, later today. And that really sounds great. And it is a benefit, but there is one issue that I've seen time and time again. I know, Rocky, you've seen this a few times too, because I know we've had this conversation before. What happens and the danger that you can run into with the recorded training is that sometimes people just never bother to actually watch the recording, right? You pay for it, you give your staff access to it, but sometimes because you're not actually forcing them to sit down at a specific time and meet with people and do a thing, they push it off and I'm too busy today and I'll get to it next week, and eventually it just completely falls off their radar and gets completely forgotten.
Yeah, there's money that's put out
Right.
for that training.
Absolutely. You laid out cash. You want people to get the benefit of your investment there. So how do we eliminate that, Rocco? Right? How do we eliminate the negatives of pre-recorded classes? Right? What can be incorporated into the recorded offerings, to alleviate the no questions issue? How do we address the problems here?
Yeah, well, yeah, we try to be as flexible as we can here at Zentech. I mean, I tell customers, look, let's not set up your on demand course until you know that you're going to be able to dedicate the time to it. Because otherwise, like we just said, it's a waste of time and money.
Mm-hmm.
And we try to work with customers again as best we can. I mean, if you have a question and you can reach out to us by email. We're happy to try to address the question. And again, we have folks that are watching the classes at night or on the weekend. So, there's flexibility there. The other benefit, Jim, to the on demand is everybody learns differently, right? I mean, there's folks that just say, I don't like the on demand,
Mm-hmm.
I don't like the live, I learn better by doing on demand and watching it 20 times, and then there are people that see it once done live and bam, they got it,
Yeah,
so
that's
you
a
got
good
to
point.
factor in everybody's different learning styles.
Yeah, it's not a one size fits all. You kind of have to adjust it to your own client base, and it's great that nowadays you do have the options, right? You can choose whichever is going to work for, either you as a company or even for individuals if you want to go that route. All right, so when I teach online CAD classes, one of the things that I always do is I record them. Right? And we almost always offer those, obviously for a fee, right, as recorded classes, later on. And even with the recorded classes, right, we incorporate all of our presentation materials. That's really common in this type of training. So when you go and you get that pre-recording, we're going to include on the web page where you're going to access the recording, the example drawings that we use, any handouts that we give out, all of that, support material, so that what you have and can download, right, all the same information, the same files and data that we're using in the recorded session class. And we include that for anybody who's paying with the recording. So one thing that I do want to point out here is that the recordings are changing a bit, right? There's kind of a subcategory to the pre-recorded training, and they're really being offered in two different ways now. Traditionally, as we've been talking about, as on-demand, limited time access. Which means you pay for a set period of access time, whether it's for a day or a week or a month, to the recording, and then once that time period is over, your access to that recording is disabled. Right, so you got the training, you learned it, you move on, you don't look back. There's a new concept that's really just getting going, right? And it's the idea of perpetual subscription access to recorded training. And this is something that we have just gotten into ourselves here. We opened up, it's our Zentech Civil Engineering Hub, and you guys may have heard that. We're kind of sponsoring the podcast ourselves with that, so you may have heard the commercials for it. And the idea is that you pay a monthly fee, right, and you gain access to all of the site's hosted training, as long as your subscription is paid up. So, for example, in our case, right, the Civil Hub has hundreds of hours of civil related classes, plus a bunch of other, cool stuff that we incorporate with blogs and vlogs and so on, that lets the subscribers access it as much and as frequently as they need to, anytime, day or night, doesn't matter. And that's great because a lot of times there are things that you go in, you're doing a specific task in the CAD world, you go in, you look at it, you know how to, okay, I figured out how to do that one thing. All right, but you may not do that thing for another 8 months, and then you're like, oh, I don't remember how to do it. Well, when you're subscribed to a site like that, right, you can just go back to training what you watched last time. It's still there. It's still available. You can go back and refresh yourself 1,000,000 times if that's what you need. So I think that model is really promising, particularly in the CAD environment, and we're seeing it grow really, really quickly. So, Rocco, what other types of classes are we, offering on our, currently on the Civil Hub, right? And what areas are we considering moving forward for the recorded subscription model?
Yeah, in the Civil Hub, we do include some AutoCAD training. There are some tutorials around around Bluebeam as well. It's evolving, so we're always adding new content from week to week. Depending upon how nice you are, Jim, to me, we may be adding. We're talking about adding content within the construction world and in the architecture world, and beyond. So.
I would hold my breath, people, if it depends on me being nice to Rocco. I don't know I can do that.
We'll have to see how it goes.
All right, just for the sake of our listeners, I'll try to be nicer to you, Rocco. Okay, fine. God, blackmail me much, huh? Nice. All right. So, yeah. All right. I think with that we can. I think we can wrap it up here by saying that I still think that at the moment, right, the instructor-led online training is the best way to go. But that a hybrid of using those instructor-led classes tied to long-term subscription training sites may be the very best methodology moving forward, right? Because it gives you kind of the best of both worlds in a very affordable manner. That's my thought. Anything you want to add to that?
No, I don't think so.
All righty, then I think we can wrap it up here, folks. What, you had something you want to say?
Just be nice to me.
I gotta be nice to him. All right, I'll be nice to him, at least until the next time on the Cattle Call Podcast. All right, everybody, today's Cattle Call was brought to you courtesy of Zentech Consultants. That's Rocco and I. Zentech Consultants works with design and manufacturing firms to help our clients purchase and implement the software that they need in these complex industries. We provide a single point of contact for clients to buy, develop, and learn the most vital software systems for your specific needs. Zentech strives to be your trusted technology partner from your initial needs all the way through long-term support and training for your entire staff. So Rocco, why don't you tell them how to reach out to Zentech?
All right, yeah, you can reach out to us through zentechconsultants.net. You can email us at sales@zentechconsultants.net, or you can even call us 866-824-4459.
Excellent. We look forward to hearing from you all.